Hey everybody, wanted to show you something that we've been working on here at school that might be beneficial to you. I was working with some of the SPED teachers and they were trying to find a way to have an easier solution for tracking students and tracking their data, how their days were going in and out of the classrooms with the teachers. And so we came up with a form that we wanted to come up with, and then we wanted to link it to a sheet, which would help us track all of our data. So first thing is we did, we made a form. And so for example, this class, let's call it hype daily point sheet. There's no description, and we would just have kids fill this one out. So we have a few different things to start with. We have whatever the date is, we wanted to know that. We entered all of our student names. Now these ones aren't actually the students' names. These are ones I just threw in for this demo and for this example. But you would just fill in the list of kids that you are working with, the ones that you want to track or the ones that you want to keep track of what's going on with them, and were they absent today? If they would answer yes, we branched that question. So I said, okay, thank you, you're done. You don't need to worry about filling in the info for that day. And if it was no, then that would continue on to the next section. So the next section that we worked on was were you ready? So were you on time today? 1 was yes, 0 was no. We could have easily just put yes or no, but that's the way we went with it. Did you bring all the necessary materials? Yes or no? Were you respectful and follow directions? Were all of your questions and comments respectful? And were you responsible? Did you participate in any discussions today? And then lastly, did you use your class time wisely? 0 through 5. So what that looks like, just to give you an idea on a student side of things, we're going to preview it here, is I would have come in as a student and said, today's date is the 26th. My name is Jim. I was not absent today, which would bring me to my next part of the form. And 1 for yes. Was I on time? Yep. Did I bring all the necessary materials? Yeah. Did I follow the directions? Not so great today. Were all of my comments respectful? Nope. Did you participate? Yep. Overall, how did I use my class time? I'm going to give myself a 4, so I would submit that. And so then that was the first part of what we wanted to do together. And then we had to have a way in order to see it better. So we linked a sheet to it. And if you're not familiar with that, in the main form where the responses are, up here where it has a sheet, if you click this, it would bring you either automatically to your sheet or it'd ask you if you want to create a new one with it. And we just said yes. So that's how that goes. And so it would bring this sheet. So the first form that you see here, and I'll hide this out of the way, the first part of the sheet that you see is going to collect all of my answers. And so I have just done all of these now as I was going through examples with other people. That's why I have all of these. Otherwise, this would be like a student's email address. And it's nice to collect that automatically. So that way you can double check down making sure who it is and we're not lying about our names or anything like that. Something to think about. But they all come here. Then what I did is I would add a new sheet. And as I add a new sheet, this one's called sheet 13, but I would have renamed it to the sheet that I needed it called. So let's call this one Lucas. That's for me. But that's what you do when you'd add all of your students' names. And so these are the 5 that at the bottom that I had in the form. I'm going to delete mine real quick so that it's out of the way. And so then what we needed to do was enter in a function in order so that way, because this is hard to read and I see that Jim, Jenna, Hunter, Jacob, it's really hard to focus and figure out who's who over here. And that's so hard to read that really doesn't do me much good. And so for each new sheet, when we added the students' names, we entered a simple function that would separate us. That way every time Jim's name comes in, this is all the data I want to see on Jim. Here's Jenna, Caleb, Hunter, and Maddie. So in order to do that, up in the top, when you would create a new one, and it would already have this for you. In this first box, you need to do a query. So you can do the equal sign query. This part is going to ask you where you want to pull it from. So like, where do you want to pull it from? We want to pull it from form response 2. Yours will probably say form response 1, but you will see this color when you've done it right. I separated it by a comma right here. All right. And then what I wanted to do is so now that's where I pulled the first answers from, and how I wanted to separate it was by name. So I'm going to select where D, so this is talking about column D right here, column D, where D equals Jim. And once that's set and you do that, then all of a sudden, whoops, I accidentally screwed it up there. Once you would do that, every time that on this form Jim is entered, he's going to come over here. And notice that if you look at up here at this function or this formula and function, when I do Jenna, the only thing that's actually changed when I look here is this part of the name. So once you do this part, which you can just pause it and go to it and type it in if you'd like, then the only thing that you have to change every time for a student, or in our case, these fake students, is their name. And then that will start collecting the data. Now, once you collect that data, it won't actually change colors for you. You would just get the data. But for our teachers' purposes, we thought it was a lot easier to be able to see it visually. It makes it a lot quicker. And so then we just did a little bit of conditional formatting. And so in order to do that, we went to formatting, hit conditional formatting, and it's going to pop up over here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about the range. And so let's say if I was going to do something over here where these are, I would select the range, and I can either type it in if I want, or I can just click and drag, which is a little bit simpler. So I just wanted these first questions. I'm gonna push OK. So it changes that for me right here. If the cell contains, and how I did it was if the text is exactly, I put 0, I wanted it to be red. And that's how we get the red right here. If text contains exactly 1, I had it green, which is how I got these answers here. And then you just push done. And so for the first one, you'd push done, then I would add another rule, and then change this to 0, and change here to red, and push done. And so then essentially what I would do is that sets up these color scales for me. So that way, for example, if I'm going to do one for Jim, just to show you what it looks like, if I would go into the form over here and submit a response, and I'll do this really quick for you. So if my name is Jim and it's today's date, actually let's do like next week sometime. Jim, I was here today and I had, let's say, a pretty darn good day. I'm gonna give myself all ones actually and fives. So when I submit that, we're gonna see it pop up here in just a second. Boom, there it is. So now I can see this and it's all greens, and that helps me out visualize how his day is going. It also helps us visualize up and down how they're doing, and maybe there's a certain skill. So like this one's the question over there. Were all of your comments respectful today? Well, if I have a lot of zeros here, a lot of no's, then that's definitely an area that we can help focus on and we can work on. Lastly, I did the same type of thing over here, but so this one was, did you use your class time wisely today? And that was a question that was 1 through 5, but I really wanted to be able to break that one open and look at it a little bit closer. And that was kind of my overall question. And so if I went back to conditional formatting and I clicked on it OK, it says that I have 3 things here for it. All right. And you can kind of toggle back and forth. If I'm on J, it says that I have a couple things here. And I'll get rid of one of these because I don't need them both. But so if I'm on K, when I looked at this value, in order to get them to be green so we can see it a little bit easier, I went to the range. When I clicked here, all I did was click on K. That's the one I wanted. All right. I did greater than 3, so that way it means that it's going to be 4 or 5. And in the color, I just click down here and click green. For the next one, if you looked at it, was no different. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to close out of that. Same difference for these two as well. If it was between 2 and 3, that means that it included the value 3 and included the value 2. I wanted it to be yellow, which means he had an okay day, but not great. And then if it was less than 2, it meant 0 or 1. So 0 or 1 meant red. 2 or 3 was yellow. 4 or 5 was bright green. So that's just an example of one thing that we did to help us out in order to track some student behaviors. And it was a great way to have some data collection, especially for the SPED classrooms, social workers. It's a great way to utilize Google in order to help you out and hopefully make your job easier and be able to track this. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions or thoughts. Otherwise, we'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching.